Hello, good evening. I want to discuss something that's very, very there. I've been thinking about the story of Joseph really recently, and I noticed a particular pattern in Joseph's story that was very amazing. So, for those of us who are encountering the story of Joseph for the first time, let me just run Joseph's story in a bit. So Joseph had, came from a family of 12 brothers, one sister. Let's not go there. So he had a dream that one day he was going to be very, very, be in high authority. He was going to grow into a man of great influence. And of course, he had shared this dream with his father and, of course, with his sibling. And they had thought that Joseph would rule over them. So that created envy amongst them. And they decided to assassinate Joseph. But whilst they were on that, something would happen. They would change their mind and decide to sell Joseph to slave traders. Joseph would go to Egypt and would serve in a man's house called Potiphar. Joseph would serve in a short while in Potiphar's house. Then he will become very prominent in Potiphar's house, almost next in command to Potiphar. Then Joseph will be offered the opportunity to have sex with Potiphar's wife. Joseph would decline. Joseph would be sent to the prison. In a short while, Joseph would rise to prominency while in the prison. He would, and a specific encounter would happen. Joseph would narrate dream for two men who were greatly worried. And just as the way he had narrated the dream, it would happen just like that. The two men would become, one would be beheaded the next day, the other would be promoted back to his previous position. And a few years down the line, Joseph will become the governor in Egypt, just after Pharaoh. Now, this was what I discovered. I think besides just Joseph's ascension to the governorship position in Egypt, I think Joseph have some amazing people skill. And I'm going to talk about it briefly. So first, he was loved by his dad. And, the perfect reason for that would be because his dad has always loved his mom, right? As his preferred wife. But then when he left his father's house, through slave trade to Potiphar's house, he would rise to become the next in command after Potiphar. So it shows you that there was something likable about Joseph. Not just because his mom was a preferred wife to his dad, but because Joseph had some very, very amazing way with people, right? And I would like to tell it he had some great people skill. And if that is not enough, when Joseph had gone to Potiphar's house as a slave, after a while, Potiphar discovered that his house was prospering, right? And I would want to liken that to the encounter Joseph had with Pharaoh. But, before we go into that, let's take this journey one step at a time. So Joseph would rise into ascension in Potiphar's house, and after Potiphar, Joseph would be the next in command. And a time came when Potiphar's wife would want to have sex with Joseph, and Joseph would decline. But how is it possible that within that short period of time, Joseph would have risen to that position, and the wife must have picked interest, people skill? You see, Joseph had a way with people that he would be able to share in your burden, communicate with you effectively, give you an amazing atmosphere. I'm going to tell you how I know about this later on as we advance. And when the Potiphar's wife had lost after him, it wasn't as a function of anything, but it was because of his personality, his aura, right? Probably the way he carries himself, probably the way he treats people, probably the way he respects people. And that was why when she wanted to have sex with him, Joseph would say no, because, that was not what he wanted. He gets sent to the prison. At the prison, he rose to prominency again. Why do you think that must have happened? I tend to believe that despite the fact that Joseph was educated, I think Joseph had that amazing leadership people skill again. because he was able to identify two men in the prison who had worrisome dream and needed interpretation. This is it. So the prison should be like filled with vast number of people. How was he able to identify two people who had really, really terrible dream if he wasn't in good communication with them? I want to know because I'm curious. I'm curious because I believe that somebody must have called Joseph. Hey, Joseph, your friends are having a bad day. Go see them. And Joseph must have gone to see them. And that's why they have told him the dream. And he was like, had told them the truth. Because it's very difficult for you to tell someone that you're going to be beheaded the next day, then you're going to be promoted. I would like to imagine how best he handled that. And when Pharaoh had a terrible dream, the man whom was promoted by the revelation of Joseph's dream sent for Joseph, because Joseph was the only guy who would analyze and interpret Pharaoh's dream. What am I saying, friends? You might be skilled, because most times people think that the Bible says, "See that a man diligent in his craft, he will stand before kings and not men," and feel that, oh, I'm skilled, is good enough. No, it's never good enough. You need to have people skilled. You need to build relationship. You need to foster it. And it's important. You need to pay attention to relationships. Super important, because it is these relationships that you have that will bring you to the king. Joseph's dream, interpretation of dream, ability to interpret dream precisely was not enough. He needed a butler to be able to do that. He needed someone who he had helped before to be able to introduce him to the king. Before I wrap up this beautiful podcast, right, I just want to drop, some few words that I think, will help us as we go on. It's important we build people's skill, right? Because they will always come in handy in various situations. The role of communication, right, it's important. We must learn to communicate. We must also learn to balance our skills and integrity. Right? Joseph's ability to deny Potiphar's wife offer for sex is something that still baffles me today. Because most people will think, well, my brother has betrayed me. I don't trust anyone. And here's a woman who had loved me, and fall into her arms. But he said, no, you must not jump into compromising offers, especially the one that screams against your value. Immediately you do that, you start changing your destiny for something for the now. I'm very sure many people will have thought that no, Joseph was silly for denying his master's wife's offer. We must also improve on our leadership qualities. Joseph had an amazing leadership quality. That's why he was always rising to leadership positions. Right? Yes, you want to say yes, the hand of God was on him. He had an excellent spirit. But Joseph's ability to put what is kept under his care, to manage it efficiently, was what took him there. His ability to relate with people, motivate people, inspire people, make them to carry out tasks as they should, was pivotal to his rising. Right? As a matter of fact, right, he was also able to identify opportunities to help others. By identifying those men who had that terrible dream, I was able to sort out time to help them. I think, it was really, really special, right, to those men, right? And it's important that we know that networking is good. So always work on your relationships. Keep relationships, healthy relationships, right? Learn when to say, no, this is not for me, this is not mine, and you walk away, right? You can see that Joseph's rise to prominence didn't originally come from who he is. It came from someone that he has helped before. And of course, we must learn to respect others. Pay attention to people regardless of their status. Don't wait to walk again from negative situations. I've talked about that before. And of all, we must learn to balance technical skills and people skills, because it helps to take us to the king. Right? You can never get to the king if you're not in the right environment. So at this point, I would like to bring this podcast to a close. I believe you enjoyed it. I want to assume that you reach out to me and tell me what you think about this podcast, and I'll be willing to listen. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful time ahead.